We are back live in person, and I think our listeners will be shocked to hear this. Adir was on time. He was literally 10 o'clock on the dot.
On the dot.
Which has just like completely ruined all our... I was expecting to do another 20 minutes work.
Well, you ruined the magic of this podcast because you pull back the curtain to reveal what time we record the podcast. Actually, what people often ask me when we record it, and the answer is as close as possible to the release time.
Yeah, exactly.
So that
we want to keep it current, especially this week, because obviously we're recording Monday and Tuesday. We've got budget coming up Tuesday, so we want to be as close as possible.
When is it on Tuesday night?
Tomorrow night, essentially. So tonight, essentially, for people listening, who a lot of our listeners listen. Well, I have listeners who literally listen the second it comes out, which is pretty incredible, and I get messages within an hour.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I think it might not be an exaggeration to say that for many people, they might look back on this podcast and say this moment was the most important moment in the last 25 years of Australian history economically.
So you mean the budget, not our podcast?
Well, yes, but like presumably that's most of what we're going to talk about.
Talking about the
podcast. No, but like I think that's going to be a big topic because
there's a bit happening.
The change that's about to happen in this country. Well, obviously, we'll talk about it later in the podcast. But the change that's going to happen will be. I think this will reverberate for decades if it's not
reverted.
If it doesn't revert exactly.
It also depends on
in terrible ways.
I think we'll get into a second, but I think what's really staggering is how quickly it's happened, and we've seen policy on the run with SRL and NBN back with Rudd and every time that both Labor and Liberal, but Labor tends to write policy on napkins that cost tens of billions of dollars and ruins things for generations. So it's not great. Like we love moving fast and breaking things when you're running a startup. Governments probably shouldn't be moving fast and breaking things. It's not really their role. Their role is to try not to stuff things up and be as small as possible. And we've got the reverse in Australia, unfortunately. How was your week generally?
I'm in a very good mood because I'll tell you what I did yesterday. So my 16-year-old daughter has got this school, got talent kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, I want to do, she loves comedy like I do.
Oh, cool.
And she's like, I want to do something comedic.
Oh, great.
Well, we can't do a stand-up routine for 2 minutes.
That's hard.
Well, no, but the risk of bombing is too great. So I'm like,
it's hard.
Yeah. So I said to her, what are you going to do? And so do you remember that dude, Weird Al Yankovic?
Yeah.
There was actually a movie about that guy. Remember that guy? Anyway, he made
Daniel Radcliffe was Weird Al Yankovic.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't a great movie, by the way. Yeah. And so I was very excited because I loved that guy in my youth.
Yeah.
It's Twisted, all these songs. So my daughter did
What was the Michael Jackson beat? He had to beat it one.
Eat It.
Yeah, Eat It.
Yeah,
that was his most famous
there was
song,
so many good ones.
Yeah.
There was also this group, this is a bit of a tangent, but there was also this group that made fun of the Bee Gees called the Heebie Jeebies. And they wrote, there was this song, Wherever I Lay My Hat, That's My Home. And they changed it to Wherever I Lay My Hat, That's My Hat Stand. That was a pretty good song. Anyway, so my daughter did this thing, which was a variation, which is she said, I used to be friends with Adele, but we had this big falling out. She was nasty to me. And then she tried to make up. And you heard the phone call that she made to me, but you only heard half the conversation.
Yeah.
So this is the other half. And she got that song, Hello.
Yeah.
And she'd play a line and then she'd respond to it as if it was actually very funny.
Great.
And so I'm in a very good mood. And hopefully they let her into the talent.
Oh, this was the audition.
This was at the audition. I mean, God, no one else is going to be doing this. I'll give you that as a tip. So we'll see. So I'm in a very good mood.
Yeah. Well,
they'll be ruined, by the way, tomorrow with the budget. But yes,
yeah, exactly.
I'm temporarily in a good mood.
William, my son, who's obviously been a pretty good swimmer. We've talked about his swimming in the past, but running, he's improved his running, but he was never, running probably wasn't as good a sport for him as other stuff. And he had the cross country and he qualified for the sort of called the rep cross country. There's only 14 schools and it's probably about...
How far is that?
It's only 3K for
I wouldn't say only
but
this
is grade 6, so they're not, obviously, they're still pretty young. And I think the grade 4s do 2K. There's some unbelievable good runners. There were kids doing sub 4 minute Ks, 3.5 minute Ks. One of my friends, Sam, did 3.5, which is unbelievable how quick these kids are. And William did it. He finished about mid-pack, but third for his school. So third fastest
exciting.
Boy in his school, which is pretty good for a kid who, we was a bit worried he wouldn't make the distance. So not only did he make, he did sub 5 minute Ks, which is pretty good.
I wouldn't want to run 3Ks. If someone said that's 3Ks away, my first thought would not be, I'll just jog it out. That's not my thought.
I did the Mother's Day run yesterday, which was...
Did you?
There's
How
a
far was
4K and
that?
8K, and they put it on a 12.5. But I still did the 8 just for old time's sake, because I usually do a half, either 15 or half sort of length, and the 8's good because you kind of not sprinting it, but you got to go a bit quicker. And there's a couple of it's tan, so up the hill. For Melbourne, people will know the tan hill very well. My best time for I think was I've done about 4.5 minute Ks. I did slightly slow, about 4 minute 50 Ks. So it wasn't my best time, but it was a better time than probably expected, given sort of still on the journey
Rehabbing.
back. Yeah.
Did you get a lot of shoeless comments?
None until I finished, and they have like the hot proper finish, and there's a commentator and people, like a lot of people at the finish. It was quite good the way they did it actually.
Yeah.
And the commentator made a few like calls about the barefoot thing, which was
Dude
nice.
can't afford shoes.
Not that. It was more like, I can't believe this guy. Because it was also pretty cold. So I was
Yeah.
running like the 5-degree weather.
I think running barefoot, like unless you're in the snow, the least of your problems is the cold.
No,
the main
cold's a
problem is
factor.
the no shoes part of
the
it.
cold's a big factor.
Really?
Cold's, the two things that impact me most, if it's below 4 degrees, your feet start getting frostbite. And it's because the road's colder than the air. So you're touching this constantly
Right.
cold road. And then that's bad, but the pebbles are the worst. Like I can't run in pebbles. It's like someone stabbing you. So you got to wear these sock things.
That's how most people feel about running barefoot on anything.
No, if you're running
Except
barefoot
carpet,
on,
maybe.
footpath, fine.
Really?
You could easily run on footpath.
What other parts of human progress are you opposed to? Shoes, that's one thing.
My feeling. I've discussed
What are you
this shoe
against
issue.
as well? Clothes? You want to run around naked? Why are you wearing clothes?
We weren't meant to wear shoes. But shoes are a very
Meant to?
modern
Who
invention.
meant to? What God said, don't wear shoes.
No, I think he did. I think it's 11th
No
commandment.
one is. God's got no view on shoes.
I think he does have a view on
No,
shoes.
he doesn't.
He did make
As long as you don't eat them if they're made of pork, he's fine. He's got no other view on shoes.
I went to Adelaide last week.
I like Adelaide.
I love Adelaide. It is, I reckon, almost the best city for 2 days in Australia.
Underrated city.
Hugely underrated.
Cheap.
Everything,
Nice.
and especially the accommodation, because I was at a big AHIS travel conference run by James Wilkins. It's probably the best travel conference for hotels and operators
Yeah.
in the country. It's about 1,500 people go there now. I did a great one-on-one with Julian Clark from Lansmore, who's an amazing entrepreneur, does a great job running some 9-hotel boutique high-end
Lansmore,
business.
I know that
It's
brand.
Werribee Mansion.
Yeah,
Jules does a really good job. So we did a thing on stage, which was great. But yeah, the beauty is you can stay in the city, North Terrace, and you walk into Adelaide Oval in 5 minutes, and everything's
Yes.
close, and food's cheap, and the hotels are
agree.
there and pretty good. So they built a heap of hotels. It's a bit like Melbourne a few years ago. They built a heap of hotels
Yeah.
and building and you've got Peter Malinascus, by far the best premier. He is an absolute legend. This
Are we
guy.
going to do a live show there? Will anyone turn up?
We should
to
speak
our
to
live
Mally and
show
see if
there?
I think we'll get a few. But he is like watching him speak. He came and did a live, no notes, just bang. On top.
Yeah.
He is like, imagine if he was prime minister, like how good it would be. And look at it. We got Albo, that bumbling fool, as prime minister. And we got Jacinta running Victoria. Like, could you get a worse situation? We got the worst person in Victoria. They got 45 minutes away, you got the best person. It's such a contrast. In Adelaide, South Australia, no wonder is flying when you got a guy like that. And no wonder Victoria's a disaster when you got people who run Victoria as a communist autocracy that's sort of run down here.
Well, we should say this about, I think this is an interesting point on the way that citizens of Australia can be more attuned to the lies that politicians are telling us.
Yeah.
And so in Victoria, they just released a budget,
Yeah.
which, by the way, on the day of the budget release, the papers were not released. I tried to access the papers.
Have they released them at
They
this
were
point?
not released.
Still not released?
I didn't look. They were smart. They thought if people don't see them on the same
Yeah.
day, they're probably going to give up, right?
Yeah,
I
totally.
gave up. And so, but what I did see is this in the information they released. I'm sure you saw the announcement. The announcement was there's a $1 billion operating surplus.
Yeah.
Operating surplus.
Yeah.
And so I looked into that a bit. And so inside
Ignores
that operating...
capital, right?
Yeah, but inside the operating surplus is around $9 billion of interest payment for debt. So that's in the operating surplus. Like, that's an expense.
Yep.
Fine. And there's also...
So they include that. So it would have been a 10 billion surplus, but for the interest, or
Yes, correct.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, but for the interest, and let's continue.
Yeah.
And so that's fine. That makes them look good. Well, we paid the $9 billion of interest and we still made $1 billion. Interesting. And so what about the $16 billion that you're spending building stuff this year?
The capital costs.
The capital costs. Well, obviously that's not in the operating profit. Only the depreciation of that is in there, and there's not much depreciation because it's new.
Yeah.
And mostly it hasn't been spent yet. You can't depreciate stuff you
It's the
haven't
SRL
bought.
stuff that's coming.
Right,
Yeah.
it's still coming through. And so it turns out that if you really factor in all of the cash that is moving around in this state this year, instead of this nonsensical $1 billion profit headline, actually there's another $9 billion of debt that has to be incurred. Looked at another way, the $8 or $9 billion of interest, we are spending so much money that there is no cash to pay the interest.
Yeah.
So we're just going to capitalise the interest as more debt. That's
Yeah.
actually what's happening in Victoria, but you'd never know that based on the way it's reported. So Amelia Hamer, who's now at Ord Minnett, she's running for...
Federal, she's running? Or state?
No, I think she's running for state.
Right, yeah.
And so she made some comments.
And Jess Wilson's the leader and
correct,
Amelia in her
correct.
team.
And she made some comments which was effectively saying the maths of the Victorian government doesn't add up. And Hannah Wooten, who's an excellent journalist at the Fin,
Yeah.
I thought was a bit harsh on her in
She does Rear Window, right?
Rear Window, because she said, well, the maths does add up, it's operating profit. But I think what Amelia meant, without putting words in her mouth, is to say, like, the maths might add up, but the story does not add up.
Why is Hannah defending the Victorian government? No, she should know better than that.
I think she was more just trying to take. It's, the thing about Rear Window is that is a tough column to write
100%.
because you got to find content.
But very rare. They
I
should
think
be
she's-
spending a lot more time attacking the appalling
know,
Victorian
but I
government
think-
than the guys trying to get rid of these scumbags.
I think she had. She also took a pot shot at like Amelia's stock picks and she's not a very good financial analyst because look at her stock picks. One of which was Catapult, which is flat. So by the way,
Yeah,
I'm
great
not
pick.
defending
Yeah.
that. But
Clearly she knows her stuff. He's being recommending
I'll take
Catapult.
flat, right?
Yeah.
But basically, I think it was a bit unfair because Amelia's point is right. Like the way that the
100% it's
government
right.
presents this. It does not add up. Like, it's dishonest. It's a dishonest way of presenting it.
Well, even worse is what you got to look at it in context. The Victorian government, I think the Fin actually had a pretty good excerpt here. The Victorian government's taking like $100 billion in effectively call it taxes or whatever you want to call it, levies, all this kind of stuff from Victorian. They're taking like a fraction of that in 2015 before. So they've massively increased the tax take. So Victorians are paying, Victorian public service loan costs $50 billion a year. That's like $10,000.
The tax take is
$10,000 for
huge.
every single person.
That's
So
right.
what Dan Andrews and Cynthia Allen have basically done is said, we're going to pay so many people on the public payroll that we're just going to keep getting elected because these people keep electing us. It's like we've literally hit communism in Victoria. I'm not. People say, "Oh, you're just throwing out these words." We are literally a socialist communist state in this piece of shit state that Dan Andrews has taken over, and Jacinta Allen has ruined. They should be hanged. Literally, these people are an absolute disgrace.
On a more positive note, I just still want to emphasise, I think Rear Window is an important column.
Absolutely.
And I think Hannah is an excellent journalist. And I think that,
But go after the scumbags who are ruining the state. Other people trying to
think-
fix it. I like Hannah. I think she's great, but this was just going after the wrong person. We need to get Harvey Amalay out from Argentina.
With his what's it called? Like the big sideburns.
Oh, I love his
going.
sideburns.
Yeah.
He's the, I think
Lamb
the only
chop sideburns.
He's the only person in the world capable of fixing this hellhole that has become Victoria.
Now, someone else that was portrayed.
Oh, sorry, before we move on, and people think, we're talking about Victoria, we're from Melbourne. Like the rest of Australia is now funding this hellhole state.
Victoria's
like,
the archetype
billions of
what
dollars.
you don't want to happen in a state.
But like Sydney people are getting a fraction of the, like 80% of the GST they pay. Victoria's getting 106%.
Yeah.
New South Sydney people are funding the suburban railway.
That's right.
This boondoggled, who came up with the SRL?
Who?
Dick Pick Sayers came up with it. So Luke Sayers, the humiliated former head of PwC who was...
I actually didn't quite hear what you said. It took a second for it to register in my brain. And then I'm like, oh my God, that's what you said? That's pretty funny.
Well, I actually said it about a month ago. I must not have heard it because you don't get away with it.
You'd be shocked at how much of your discussion I filter out of my brain.
90% roughly. Anyway, so Dick Pick came up with his SRL with his mate Dan, and of course it was genius from Sayers because Sayers got all his like multi-million-dollar consultancies to his near defunct firm, and now the rest of Australia's paying for it because Elbow's mates with Andrews and Sinza. So it's just appalling.
They leaked the budget. The Victorian budget leaked the federal budget because they announced that the feds were paying for part of the SRL.
Oh, like most of it.
Yeah.
It's just shocking that people in Brisbane and Adelaide and Sydney are paying for this disgrace.
Now I want to talk about a guy who was portrayed as a villain and a scumbag. But
Dan Andrews?
we thought it was a bit I was going to say we thought it was a harsh
Jeffrey Epstein,
characterisation.
so about this on par.
No, but we think those are fair characterizations, and I don't think they're on par. But like
Dan Andrews worse?
But this is a guy who we think was characterised too harshly, which is SBF.
Well, in a sense
Sam
he was
Bankman Fried.
because of the
And so I just want to ask you.
Anthropic investment. I thought about that actually.
I want to ask you some questions. And you probably will get these right disgustingly because you tend to know.
Let me
this.
answer them first.
So when what's the business called again?
Anthropic.
No.
Oh, Sam Bankman Fried.
Yeah.
FTX or something?
FTX. So when FTX went was liquidated as a result of a fraud. We shouldn't diminish that. And he was sent to jail for what I think is way too long, and so
like
do
20-something years, right?
Exactly. The amount that was owed to investors, not shareholders, investors, was about $8 or $9 billion. Let's call it 10.
I thought it was a bit more than that.
I thought it was circa 10 billion, okay? And so they forced them to sell all of their assets.
Crypto, mostly.
Everything.
Yeah.
All of the assets sold.
Yeah, sorry.
In
a lot of it was
FTX.
crypto, and they had obviously the Anthropic investment.
Now, I'm going to talk to you. Remember, there was 10 or let's call it 11 billion that was owed to investors.
And investors did get it back. They lost the upside of the crypto.
Right. So let's talk a bit about not just crypto upside, overall upside, because that was in 2023.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to ask you about 6 investments. I'm going to go from the lowest return, like multiple, to the highest. You're going to tell me roughly what you think these things are worth now, okay? If they would have held on to them.
This is the price the administrator, who was the Enron administrator, sold them all for.
Well, I'm going to tell you the original investment and what the value today is, okay? So,
do you want me to guess the value today? Or do you want me to
you're going to guess the value today, approximately. I'm going to tell you I'm going from the smallest percentage return, multiple return, to the highest, okay? So we're going to start off, there's 6 of them. We're going to start off with something called Genesis Digital. I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's the Winklevosses.
Who, what?
The Winklevi.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
The Winklevi. All right. So they put $1.15 billion into that. What do you think that's worth today?
I thought that struggled, actually.
No, they did struggle at the time they liquidated the investment.
I call it even.
$3.5 billion.
Okay.
That's the worst return of these 6. That's up 3x. So there's $2 billion they just didn't make.
Yeah.
The next one up is a business called Robinhood. You might have heard of that business. Stock trading
I haven't
business.
checked Robinhood lately.
So they invested, I'm going to just round these numbers. They invested 650 mil into Robinhood. What do you think that's worth today?
As in from when the FTX, because the FTX liquidated at a bad time, probably 10x.
So what do you think it's relative to their, I'm going to say.
It's worth $5 billion.
Yes, it's worth $5 billion. So that's 7.5x on their original investment. So that's pretty good. That's the second lowest return. The next one we go for is a crypto coin called Solana.
Oh, Solana.
They sold it at the worst possible time in the crypto winter. So they invested $190 million into that. What's that worth today?
$2 billion.
$5 billion.
Wow.
Yep. So they gave that
This
up.
guy's like Warren Buffett on steroids.
This is crazy. Next one up is SpaceX. You might have heard of that business. People have heard of that. They put $200 million into that business via K5, which I guess is a fund that invests in it. 200 mil. What do you think that's worth today?
$5 billion.
15 billion.
Wow.
Yep, that's 75x'd. The second top one is your mates at Anthropic.
That's the second.
The second top
What the hell?
on a returns basis, multiple basis.
Yeah.
So they put $500 million into Anthropic. What do you think that $500 million is worth today?
So they put $500 million in, and they would have sold for a profit.
They sold for a profit. I think that's most of what got the money back for investors.
No, because they got bit of crypto money, but they sold $500 million, as in the administrator sold $500 million, or
Their
he bought in for
investment
$500 million.
They bought in. They put 500 mil in.
Okay, so it would have been.
So they might have gotten a couple of bill out of it when they sold.
Yeah.
it.
So
what do you think it's worth today? That 500 mil they
I
invested.
reckon it would have been worth maybe like 15 or 20 billion when they sold it, and now it's potentially $1 trillion, so 50x.
So it's 165x. It's worth $82 billion. If they would have held on to that, that would be worth $82 billion. And
there's
the
a better
biggest
one.
return, not the biggest dollar value, but the biggest return is Cursor.
I invest in Cursor as well.
They were the seed round in Cursor. They invested a number called Minimal. That's the number. And I'll ruin it for you.
Cursor's 60 billion.
Well,
now,
that's
right?
worth $3 billion. That made 15,000x. And so had they have held on to these investments, the $4.7 billion invested in these 6 businesses would currently be worth $114 billion. That would be the single most successful VC in the history of the world.
Better than Sequoia, better than... Sam's problem? Sam should have made a VC fund. He should have done this crypto thing. Had he done a genuine VC fund, he would have been one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah, well...
His problem was his structure. He shouldn't have stolen the money. He should have legitimately got the money like VCs do.
Well, I tell you, I've got rules of life. Rule number 1, be lucky. Rule number 2, don't get caught.
Yeah.
And so he broke rule number 2. He got rule number 1. He nailed rule number 1.
Yeah.
Definitely very lucky. But so what basically happened with
Well, lucky and unlucky. Had he just been able... It's like so many entrepreneurs in the 80s, because they cop these 16, 17% interest rates. Like Christopher Skase, John Spalvins, who ran an ads team. John Spalvins at one point owned Woolworths, David Jones, a bunch of breweries. Like this is worth like $100 billion now, but like interest rates got him and timing got him. So Sam Bankman-Fried was just no different to all these entrepreneurs from the 80s who just got hit by interest rates. He's got hit by just a bad. He was pretty dodgy in taking money from left to right.
You shouldn't minimise the fact that he did commit a crime. He did take investor money from where they had invested it to his own personal stuff.
Yeah.
We can debate whether his intention was to put it back or not.
But what he did was right. Had he been able to stick with it, it would have been one of the best investors of all time.
Well, another way of saying it is, had the fraud have been detected today,
yes,
investors would have said, you know what? Just sell the stuff and give us our 10x return.
No, he would have just sold it and not told anyone.
Probably. Yeah. Probably. And so the difference between him and Bernie Madoff, other than I think like the premeditatedness of the crime, is that Bernie Madoff never had any chance of making back the money, whereas Sam Bankman-Fried's 10x the money in the last 3 years.
More than 10x.
And meanwhile, this guy is writing his memoirs in jail for the next 25 years. It's a crazy story.
Yeah.
It's a crazy story. You know, I say this somewhat flippantly, not to diminish the crime, but because in Michael Lewis's book, he said he doesn't think Sam Bankman-Fried had the intention of perpetrating crimes. It wasn't premeditated. He doesn't diminish that he did perpetrate a crime, but it's just an incredibly crazy story.
It's ridiculous. When I saw the Anthropic trillion dollar valuation, I should say, or mooted $1 trillion valuation, that's the first thing I thought of. God, how much would Sam Bankman-Fried have made?
Well, just those 6 investments have 10x'd all of the money that investors got back in three years.
And remember, this is a period where basically every venture capitalist in the world has done that. Like, unless you invest in like a Canberra in Australia, it all went terrible. And look, the US VCs have been pretty bad as well. So, and forget Europe. Europe's a laughing stock. So, like, no VC in the world has come close. I don't have to be a VC in the world that's even 1x their funds since then, let alone 10x'd it.
Well, what's crazy about it is this. If we just say, out of 10, what's the hotness factor of these investments? Anthropic, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Cursor,
10 out of 10. SpaceX, 10 out of 10. Yeah. Robinhood was super hot and everyone thought it died, but it didn't. It gave him 7.5 times his money. It's not that hot. Solana.
It's 8 out of 10.
Solana,
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Genesis Digital. Well, you thought that was dead. That might be 1 out of 10, right?
No, that's still 7 out. It's still 3x'd.
Still worth $3.5 billion of. I mean, the guys basically 3 years ago picked pretty much the hottest stocks in the hottest sector that you possibly could.
Unbelievable.
It is crazy.
I didn't realise he had Cursor as well. That's phenomenal.
He was seen around
Cursor. This is like the best Sequoia fund ever, and the best benchmark. Sequoia benchmark client considered the 3 best VC funds ever. None of them come close to this. Even like that great Sequoia fund. Like it took them 10 years to get, and they still didn't get this.
This is hot. I don't know what this guy did in a previous life, but like he must have done something terrible because not only is he gone to prison, but he has to watch this immense fall. This got to be one of the richest people on planet Earth.
It would have been.
Let me tell you one other thing that I think you're going to love, and I hate. So, Mike, what's time? I mean, don't lie about this, okay? Because I feel like you're incented to lie here. But try not to lie. What time do you wake up generally in the morning?
Usually about 6:30, but I'd probably stay in bed till about 7.
I don't know. All right, 6:30, and I don't know about the half an hour. Why are you staying in bed for half an hour? What are you doing?
Sometimes we bring the dog up, and it's just nice. All right. Well, nice way to start the day.
We can say with confidence he definitely isn't lying about that answer. And Joel, give Joel a microphone. What about you? What time are you waking up?
7:50 specifically.
7:50
somehow every time.
Unusual time.
7:50. Probably you have to leave the house at 8 and you're very quick at getting ready.
Yeah, pretty much. Brush the hair, I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah, well, that's his 10 minutes of brushing that hair, in fairness. And you, what time are you waking up?
Aim for about 5:10.
Okay, 5:10. Not 5:10.
I want to try and get 7 hours sleep now, so I often don't go to sleep till 10. So by the time you fall asleep, it's like 10 past 10. So I want to try and get 7 hours, so 5:10.
So I try and get 8 hours sleep.
Okay.
And maybe I'll wake up at 7, but I'd really prefer to wake up at 8 or maybe even 9 if I could.
Sloth.
Yeah. And so, but I'll stay up late at night if I do that.
Yeah.
And so there was a survey
Prof.
done.
G.
There was a survey done by, I actually want to give them credit, but I just can't remember who did it. It was a coffee brand or something that tried to figure out it could have been Starbucks. Like what time, but I don't think it was.
Was it Lavazza, who's proudly sponsoring Ellie Live this week in the Melbourne Exhibition Buildings? Come along if you're in Melbourne.
Are you part of that?
We're running Australia's biggest travel festival.
We can say it's Lavazza if that helps you.
Yeah.
But I don't think
great friends at Lavazza.
It could have been. And so they did this survey. What time do Australians on average wake up in the morning?
It's a good question.
Good question.
Yeah.
And so which one of us do you think is closest to the... So you're 5.
I hope it's not
You're
Adam.
5. Mike's 6:30. He's 5. You're 6. He's 5:10.
Well, people have to
you're
go to school and stuff.
Joel was 7:50. And
you're like 12 p.m.
I'm
or something.
like, you know, later.
I would have thought Mike's on average.
You know what? I think it's Joel. I
People
think
get to
it's
school and
7:50
work.
to
You
8.
can't be getting up at 8 o'clock.
And that's why I wake up at 7:15 because I have to get my kids ready, my daughter ready,
Yeah.
right? And so you think it's Mike.
And
Mike
old
thinks
people
it's
get up
Joel.
early.
Joel thinks it's what, me? Mike. And
It's gotta be Mike.
And I know the answer. Well, it is Mike.
Yeah,
the
okay.
average is 6:30.
Yeah.
And I find that disgusting. There's so many problems with that. I'll tell you problem number
I reckon
one.
the average Contrarians listener is more like 5:10, 5:15.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
We
We'll do a survey.
LinkedIn poll.
Oh, God, what are
There
you
you
going to say
go.
about my survey? We have to collaborate on how to ask this question.
No, I think this one you got less of a dog in the fight. So I think you'd be
No,
more
you
honest
say
in
that
this.
now because you haven't lost. What? So after you lose,
Or
what
what do you
say?
think? Do you think people get up later?
No, I don't. I had no.
I thought we agreed here.
they
I thought we
did.
agree here.
So these are my grievances. My grievances are it's just like that feels 6:30 is it is the morning, but 5:10 is not morning yet. That's still yesterday as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I can play 18 holes of golf, certainly in summer, and be back by 8 o'clock for kids' school.
I'm sure that is
Before they
true,
leave.
but that doesn't make it any better. And so
Go for a run.
So
like
if you
it's-
try to go to work, if you leave the house at 7:30 to go to work,
Yeah.
10 years ago, there would have been no traffic. You would have had everything to yourself.
A bit of traffic.
Now
A
packed.
bit of traffic.
Packed. Sometimes I stay in the CBD in Sydney. I look out the window at 7:30, packed. If you want to
great.
go to Bondi Beach...
Have you seen that run club at Bondi that goes like 6
Well,
o'clock?
this was
and
going to be
those
my
Insta
next
thing?
point.
Oh, really?
If you
I
go
love
and
that
see
run club.
Well,
So
if you
good.
go and see the sunrise at Bondi Beach,
Yeah.
it used to be you would go there and there would be like 15 other people.
Yeah.
That is the busiest time at Bondi
Yeah.
Beach. Packed. Absolutely packed. And the other problem with
I love it.
with waking up at 6:30 is that is one of the reasons the three of you, well not Joel, but the two of you are the reason that I can't get a coffee at 3 p.m. in Australia because
shut.
everything is opening for 6:30 maniacs, and then by 3 p.m. it's all shut down. Good night, everyone's gone home.
What I love so much about this is when we were growing up, there was the people would be hard drinking and whatever, doing drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
Now call it the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas, going for runs at 6 o'clock, putting videos on Instagram. I think the younger generation is such a healthier generation.
I think they're
than
just
older
taking drugs at 6:30 in the morning, if I'm honest about it.
No, they go for runs.
Not
They're not drinking.
I told you
and-
they'll drink if there's a free bar tab. That's what I've discovered. But yeah, I'm not sure. I hear
Well,
what
they
you're
can't afford to drink because the intergenerational theft we're about to talk
that's
about.
true.
but-
That's true. So I was quite surprised by that, and I'm very disappointed. And I think it's definitely a trend. Like people are waking up earlier and going to
Great.
bed earlier. I would wholeheartedly recommend that people get 8 hours sleep at night.
I think 7 hours.
This idea. Well, I know. Well, you do have a medical degree, but like this whole idea of remember
7 to
when
8
we
is
were
generally
growing
what's
up?
considered.
When we were growing up, when I say growing up, I mean like in our early days in business.
Yeah.
It was really there was glory in saying you didn't sleep. I didn't sleep through
Yeah.
medical school. I slept 4 hours a night.
Yeah, not even that's good at all.
It's actually terrible for your brain and gives
Yeah.
you Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And so we can say 7 or 8.
I think you don't want less than you
7
don't
or
want.
8.
And I'm now pretty fastidious on trying not to get less than 7.
Yeah.
But 7 to 7 hours, maybe 15 minutes, is about my ideal length of time. And any more, I actually struggle to function too much more. And less is not good. We know.
So if you are doing what used to be called burning the candle at both
Also,
ends,
quality of sleep
it
is
is
relevant
not
as well.
good. Yes, quality of sleep is relevant, but also you can't burn the candle at both ends. You can't go to bed at 2
totally.
in the morning and
Totally.
wake up at 6.
Yeah.
That's even if you can do it. I could do it when I was a medical student. I felt fine.
Yeah.
But it's not good. It's not
Yeah.
healthy. How many hours you sleep, Mike?
I try to get 8. I'll be in bed by 9:30, read till about 10, and then I'll
And
fall
consistency
asleep from
of
there.
sleep is super important, as we know. You got to get that circadian rhythm
Yeah.
to be like. So I'll try and be in bed, like ready to sleep by 10 o'clock every night.
Yeah, well, I can't pull that off. 9:30 in bed. I mean, I just...
Well, because you're getting up so late. Getting up at 1 p.m. So of course.
I'm getting up
Barely
at
lunch. You bitch had lunch.
If I go to bed at 11 and I wake up at 7, that's fine. That's 8 hours sleep.
Yeah, I think you should be 7.5.
I should do 7.5 hours sleep.
Yeah,
But
so you
on
get
what
up half an hour early.
On what basis do you recommend your advice? Like, why should I take your advice?
Because it's too long. You're missing
that's
out
a
half
bit
an hour.
interesting, but
You're
I can
missing
also
out
ask
on
the homeless person
5.
downstairs
You're missing
for
out
their
on
advice.
5% of your life by sleeping. Like it's
I'm missing out on life?
yes, 5% of your life is being slept away.
I feel like neither one of us can accuse the other of not packing enough into their days. And Joel must be getting more than 8 hours sleep. What are you getting?
Where'd you go
9
to bed?
hours. You're getting 9 hours.
I need a good 9 hours. Otherwise,
Wow.
I just don't operate
Have
very
you tried having less than that?
well. Yeah, I do burn the candle at both ends at times, and it's just miserable.
I would say 7
need-
hours sleep's better than candle.
I know that Adam has a difficult time conceptually with this. I know you do, but different people are different, and so my son, he needs 9 or 10 hours sleep. He does.
He's young though.
No, he's not. He's 19. I needed 4 hours sleep at 19. It really is
I have
heavily
less as I've
person
gotten
dependent.
as I've gotten older. Like when I probably would get up at 7 o'clock when I was probably Joel's age. Joel's early 20s. You're early 20s, right?
Well, just go with it, Joel. Yeah. Just go with it. You won't know this until you're older, but it's a compliment.
So back then, I was getting up a bit later, and I've gradually brought my sleep. And 5 o'clock's about it. I'm not one of those 4 o'clock maniacs. That is just too early. But
well, I'm not sure you're not one of those 4 o'clock maniacs. I just think maybe you haven't gotten there yet. Because by the time you're in the nursing home, you probably will be 4
love it
a.m.
when I do you have jet lag and you go to bed a bit earlier. Getting up at 4 is pretty cool, actually. That's because I've gone to bed at 9.
Yeah.
So it's brought everything forward an hour.
I'm not such a fan of waking up at 4 under any circumstances. It's dark outside.
You do so much stuff though.
Yeah, but then you're so tired by 6 p.m.
What's your favourite time difference versus Australian time? I was talking about one of our guys last week.
Like when I'm engaging with Australia from an overseas destination. I haven't really thought about that. I find it all mostly terrible.
Oh, so I love Asian, like so called Singapore or even Maldives island time. So 4 hours behind. So I can get up at 5 a.m. It's 9 a.m. Australian time. So you can get through the day. So you're basically starting at the same time. And then by 2 o'clock, the Australian day's finished. So you get that free arbitrage afternoon. So I love the 4 hours behind.
One of the things I like about staying up a bit later and doing work is I can send stuff to people and then I know when they get into work and start working in the morning, that's the first thing they're going to do.
Yeah.
And so that I find quite handy. Anyway, that was a nice little bit of trivia, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Excellent.
And very, very disappointing to me. Anyway. So we talk a lot about Drone Sheild.
Not lately, but yeah.
Not lately, but about whether this product really is globally appealing. And like Steve Baxter definitely had some time for it, although he said he wasn't an expert. But there is something happening globally in drone warfare, I don't know if you've noticed, that I think bodes very poorly for Drone Sheild.
It's the fibre optic thing.
Yes.
That Steve was talking about.
That's right. And so increasingly what's happening is you're getting these first-person drones, which means you put on VR goggles and you see what the drone
pretty
sees.
amazing.
That's how you pilot it. And they're like when you see a first-person view, you can do things that you can't do when you're just looking on a screen.
Ukraine really pioneered this stuff, right?
They pioneered it. And now what they're doing is they're combining these first-person view drones with these very long fibre optic cables.
Like 30, 40, 100K, right?
I'm not sure actually how long they are, but definitely many kilometres.
Yeah, which is actually amazing to think how thin they're able to get these optics and how cheap it must be now because obviously they're getting like millions of kilometres of fibre optics.
You know, my dad actually fought in this Yom Kippur war in Israel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he happened to be living there when that war was fighting, and he was in
72, 71?
73, and he was in the infantry. And he said in Egypt, what you saw was the entire floor, like the desert floor, carpeted. And it looked like it was carpet, but what it was were these wire cables from the missiles, from the anti-tank missiles that were wire guided. And that is what you're seeing now in drone warfare. You're seeing basically a carpeted battlefield with these fibre optic cables. And the reason they use these fibre optic cables, as you would know, is because it means that you can't jam them electronically because they're getting the signal down a cable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drone Shield's business is jamming drones electronically.
Yeah.
The rise of this, I think, means that for the time being, increasingly what you'll see is Drone Shield's type of technology ineffective against battlefield drones. That I don't know how much investors think about the actual product that companies
I don't think
are
Drone Shield
selling.
investors think about anything, to be honest. I think it's retail gamblers, really. It's Robin Hood style investors.
But I would be very interested to hear the new Drone Shield CEO come out and explain.
Who was the former product manager.
Yeah, so presumably he understands their product.
Absolutely.
To come out and explain, is the rise of this fibre optic based drone, is that really the future? I'll be shocked if the answer's no.
Yeah.
Israel is struggling to deal with these drones right now coming from Lebanon. So this is the country most adept at shooting stuff down that's struggling to deal with it. And if this is the future, what are they going to do to keep their products relevant? That's the first thought that came to my mind when I was reading about this stuff.
That's always the risk that technology changes changes and they're stuck on one tech and they just can't adjust.
Absolutely. So did you see the interview with, you'll tell me his name, the Magellan founder?
Oh, Hamish Douglas with Joe Aston's amazing interview.
So you saw that
interview?
interview?
I love that interview. I thought it made him look fantastic.
I think it just reminds people. I wouldn't say he looks
You've heard it?
fantastic. Yeah.
So
but I would say
relatively from what people thought before, what I thought before to what I think now, I have a much, much higher view of him.
Because what it shows is there is much more to human beings that you don't see.
Yeah, you only get one side of the story.
And so I'll tell you two interesting things about that interview that I felt personally. One is, I don't know if you remember in that interview, but he said there was a guy that asked me, am I okay? And I wasn't okay. So I think I caught up with that guy. Like,
really?
I don't want to say who it was, but yeah, I think I know exactly who asked him whether he was okay. It was someone actually close to him that was cared about him. But that line was, I think, from this guy, which was interesting to hear. And this particular individual is very positive in his remarks about Hamish Douglas. I think we have to be honest and say the guy may not have 100% self-awareness at the way he comes across sometimes, but I think that what he was dealing with and the way he was treated was terrible. And I find it quite sad that he feels like he's a pariah. But now I'm going to say something that I think will, because that's a nice thing to say.
Well, I think also the way society still treats gay people is pretty heartbreaking what he went through there.
For sure.
Especially, and I think we're much more, if someone comes out when they're 18, 19, I think everybody's very positive about that. But I think the stigma of him coming out as a married guy with kids, if anything, it's obviously harder for him because that's always hard, but it's especially hard when you've got kids. And what he had to go through.
It's harder in that generation.
That generation isn't but what he had to go through, it was horrific, and no one should have to go through that.
It was terrible. And since we said all these nice things, now I'll just make fun of him slightly. And so he made a big deal about catching the bus. And Joe Aston teased him about making a big deal about catching the bus, and he said, I caught the bus here.
Yeah.
And so my thing that I don't really understand is, why do people think public transport is worse than private transport? Like, when you go to Sydney, don't you only catch the train from the airport to get to wherever you go? When I'm in Sydney, I would say almost exclusively, unless I'm in a rush or there's no public transport there, almost exclusively I catch public transport.
But you don't live there, you don't have a car, so it's a bit different.
But I spend like a lot of time there, and like I could easily rent a car. Like, I often say in Airbnbs, there's a place to park.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't do it
renting
is
it's a bit different when you have
the
a car.
public transport is so good in Sydney, especially with the metro now, and the ferries don't run so often. But like, I just don't really understand this whole idea that rich people should have the luxury of getting private transport. I think public transport is largely in Sydney in particular more efficient than private transport.
I agree with you, but it's generally thought of that rich people either get driven or drive themselves and park in their expensive car park. And I think we agree because we're highly pragmatic, but I'm not sure that the prevailing view is if you can drive in, you should drive in.
Yeah, well, I just think the traffic is so bad. I just want to
I hate it. Like, you're much better riding a bike because you're getting free exercise and it's quicker.
Sometimes after you when you make money, you get to do some stuff that's really good that you can buy, but you also get tricked into some bad stuff and dumb stuff. And I think saying that, oh God, thankfully I don't have to catch public transport now, that's a dumb thing you get tricked into, because generally it's pretty good.
And Malcolm Turnbull was obviously famous for that as well. When Mr. Harborside Mansion, who would get public transport, and he was doing it because he was smart, not because he was altruistic.
Yeah, I think that guy is not interested in portraying himself as the everyman. Let's say that, right? He's doing it because it was a better way to get around. So anyway, I thought that was... that's a weird thing, the fixation that people have got with rich people catching public transport.
No, I agree. But I thought Hamish, and I messaged Joe about it, I thought Hamish came out really well. I thought it was a great interview, as always. Joe nailed it again. But especially given that Joe was pretty critical of Hamish, I think for Hamish to come on into the lion's den, and Joe's a pretty sort of gentle, and we spoke about on the pod. He's not going to put you through sort of 10th degree, 12th degree, or whatever it's called, but
not in person.
3rd degree, because that's the whole principle is you want to be sort of nice and then get the story. But I thought Joe was excellent. I thought Hamish was excellent. I thought it came out really well. I think he righted a lot of wrongs that were out there.
Yeah.
I felt guilty for thinking those things and for believing what you heard, because ultimately we were all proven wrong. So
I had no thoughts, by the way.
Really? Okay.
On that whole Magellan thing. I just felt like I was so far away from anyone that was involved in it. Like, I know the people at Barrenjoey, but like I didn't really talk to them about it in detail, and it just felt to me like, you had this guy and something was going on and there were a million rumours.
Yeah.
And the rumours were contradictory.
Yeah.
And so you didn't know which rumour was true. And I kind of just blocked it out of my mind and thought, well, that's got nothing to do with me. I really didn't have an opinion at the time, but I definitely felt happy for him that he got the chance to tell his story of what happened.
Yeah.
You know what people would call that in Gen Z?
What?
They would say his truth.
Yeah.
He got to tell his truth.
Can I, just before a break, I know this is a couple of weeks ago, but I thought it's worth bringing up. Do you watch, are you a marathon fan? Marathon running fan.
Marathon running?
Not marathon, the Dim Sim factory company.
What do you, I didn't even think about that. I was trying to think about what you meant by marathon because I thought it would be very obvious to you that I would not be into any form of running. So surely you couldn't be asking me about the marathon running. Do you mean am I a fan of Marathon, the place in Greece?
No. Did you see what happened in the marathon a couple of weeks ago?
No.
There was
someone ran it very fast with special shoes, right?
Yeah,
is
that
right?
London, probably London, New York, Boston.
I find this ridiculous, all
Berlin.
this special shoe stuff.
Yeah, well, we talk about that's why everybody should be wearing barefoot. There'd be no cheating, but
yeah, well, none of these special shoes of any kind have got any clinical evidence that they reduce injury. Zero.
No, they make you go faster.
Yes, that's right.
Much faster.
But all of these very comfortable shoes.
Actually, Adidas didn't have carbon. Adidas had this special foam, but
but that is for like elite runners.
Yes.
But for these shoes that people like me wear to walk around and people wear to run, like Vomero Plus Nikes and all these very soft midsole shoes. So they feel great, but there is literally no clinical evidence for them reducing injury.
It was pretty amazing though. So Kenya's Sebastian Saw did the first ever sub 2 hour marathon. So the 2 hour marathon's been this elite. Remember the 4 minute mile the 9.7 second.
I remember
100.
when you could win a marathon at 2:15.
That was not that long ago.
Yeah.
Regularly, you still can win a marathon at that time. Like, this is great conditions, it was cool. But 2 hours was considered this unbreakable. So Kipchoge, who was the great runner, the previous generation, as in retired a couple of years ago, I think he's Kenyan, Kipchoge. He ran a sub 2 hour with like 30 different paces, and it was like a special course.
People run with him and in front of him to change the wind dynamics.
He had the right sort of wind thing, people running a certain formation. He did like a 1:59 something.
Yeah.
Sebastian, so with none of that, did a 1:59.30. What's even more remarkable is Ethiopia's Yomif Kejelka, who had never run a marathon before, or never run a competition marathon before, also broke 2 hours. So imagine no one's ever broken 2 hours
crazy.
in the history of mankind legally, and the guy breaks it and doesn't even win the race. Both runners were clad in Adidas's ultralight $700 Australian running shoes. I think the shoe weighs like 97 grams, something's crazy. And Saul pulled away in the final leg to achieve that 1 hour 59.30.
But it's not just the weight, right? It's basically a trampoline.
Yeah, it's the weight and the springiness, exactly. So this all started when Nike released Vaporfly in 2017, the first super shoe. Adidas share price went up 10% after the marathon, which is pretty, like both Adidas and Nike have been absolutely smashed. Nike especially smashed.
Nike's got big problems.
Yeah, real problems. Nike's, I'm not saying it's terminal, but it's got some real issues.
It's not terminal.
Yeah. Well, it's never going back to what it was, share price wise, but.
Oh, well, you say that, but like, go look at Intel's share price graph, okay? Intel was...
Nike's not making data. Nike's not making chips.
I know, because it's not going back today. But do you remember how unpopular Intel was 1 year ago? People said that business was dead. People said that business had lost the game to NVIDIA. Now it is significantly higher than its highs from 1999. Yeah. There are only two massive, almost vertical spikes.
It's also quite bubbly.
1999 and now.
It's become quite memey, Intel.
Yes.
So,
look at the graph. The graph will tell you exactly all you need to know about where we are in the cycle.
So Adidas share price up 10%. Shares are still 40% off its recent February peak and less than half their all-time high in 2021. And they're back to where they traded a decade ago. So Adidas had a tough run, albeit Nike is a lot worse. So Nike's 76% of its peak in 2021. So this is a share. Remember, the market's probably doubled since then. So this is a catastrophic result. This is Atlassian style. And it's back to where it was in 2014. So it's basically like almost... This is the same as what we talk about Seek.com being back to 2014 level. So I
did have a look at Nike a little while ago, and what I saw is it had the double whammy of falling profits and compressed price to earnings ratios. Yeah. And so that is really why the share price has been
the reverse
falling.
of alchemy.
Yes.
You don't want to say that. Well, but they kind of go together. Like you see a reversal of this overpriced PE bubble. And so not only do you have the profits fall, but investors also go, or speculators go, hold on, I'm seen growth drop to negative potentially. This should have a super low multiple. So that inevitably happens.
And this should be the moment for Nike and Adidas, because either you're an AI stock or you're not, okay? And so they're not.
Yeah.
But then there are some things, if you're not an AI...
They're not Halo though. They're not high. They're not heavy
if you're
assets.
not an AI stock, then everyone asks this question about your business. How is AI going to make things worse for you? And the thing, if you're a vertical retailer, which is Nike basically is now, like they do, all right, they've gone back to selling a lot through Foot Locker, but they sell a lot themselves and they own their brand and like they do a lot of research on shoes, and so does Adidas. Like right now, the answer with those businesses is AI can't hurt us and maybe it can help us a bit. And those businesses should be having their moment in the sun. And I'll tell you which businesses are having their moment in the sun from that. Koala, which is down a bit on its IPO, but it got the IPO away. And Skin Candy, which is Trent Peterson is chairing. And so that's going to get its IPO away at the top end of the range. All right, it brought down the valuation. But these, I think investors are looking at these businesses and they're saying, what can we buy? We can buy AI. Well, but that's run. We can buy things that we used to hate that are very capital intensive, but they're shielding us from AI downside. And vertical retail is this category that is low capex and also shielded from AI downside. This should be their moment in the sun now, in my view.
Well, it's not just Nike. It's pretty much all the shoe businesses have had a tough time. So look, even the good ones. So look at On Running, which is a great business. That's down not 50%, but close to 50%.
What about Deckers? They own, what the shoe brand they own?
So yeah, Deckers own Hoka.
Yeah.
That's down exactly 50% off its high. And the high was only reached.
What earnings multiple these things are trading on now?
They all seem to peak about just in like December 2024. So call it 18 months ago. That's on a 14 multiple. So we're just seeing multiple compression everywhere.
I mean, that seems very cheap to me. I mean, unless they've totally... I mean, we obviously haven't looked at this in detail.
Yeah, and the earnings are up 20%. Like they're not... Why don't we do a deep dive into a couple of these businesses?
This moment of how can I be shielded from AI downside?
Yeah.
The ways you can be shielded are buying stuff that has lots and lots of like a very asset-heavy business, but those businesses suck. Like we've always thought those businesses suck. Like you have to invest all this money into them and eke out a return from them. But there's this other category of business that is not capital intensive and shielded. I think that those should be doing really well in this market.
There's been some sort of shoe apocalypse in the last sort of 18 months because they're all, even like Nike's down obviously 76%, but even the good ones are down 50. Well, Nike's a great business, but I think the problem was investors are spending too much money paying for these, call it inverted commas, brand, and they're quite, and what On and Hoka have shown is it's quite commoditized, this space.
Maybe. But I mean, I don't know. We'll look into it in detail because it might also be that investors are spending all of their money on AI capex and gold and have no money left for anything else.
Shoes. The blood is boiling at the Contrarians after the leak. So we'll get the budget tonight, but we've had a lot of leaks, and this is what governments...
You said to me when we were chatting on chat appropriately, you said to me, I was like, I'm not sure we're going to be able to talk about this. And you're like, no, there'll be enough leaked out that we can talk about it. And you were right. Like there is enough leaked out. Clearly what they're doing is just trying to ease the country into, because it's all broken promises, this tax. I think, because it would be easy for us to rant about this for the next 7 hours, I think we should have a bit of structure and explain to people first, like what some of these things are and why they exist.
Why don't I give the background first, and we'll go into the sort of the CGT nuances. But so in a move that's really shocked Australia's fledgling startup community, the federal government has been backgrounding journalists on removing the capital gains tax discount. We'll talk about that more in a minute. On all assets and replacing it with an inflation-adjusted scheme. And this is what existed prior to the Howard government's changes in 1999. The original speculation back in February was that the government was thinking about winding back the 50% capital gains deduction for only property investors as part of its focus on tackling intergenerational inequality in housing by dealing with supply. And we actually have been very hot on this. So this is sort of an issue that we think needs to be sorted. And I think there was a lot of sympathy in the market for winding it back for property. Although there's possibly some issues there, but there's a lot more sympathy for property investors who've had a pretty good run. But Australian founders... startup founders and investors were absolutely blindsided by the government's release, literally over the weekend, amid rising anger that the move will spark and almost certainly lead to an exodus of tech talent from Australia. Lee Jasper, who's one of Australia's most successful founders and a fantastic guy, he sold his construction software company, Aconex, to Oracle for $1.6 billion, said the change would be a disaster for venture-backed companies. And of course, Lee won't be impacted by this himself. He's sold out already. So he can be very credible in saying this.
Well, he's got a new startup that he's doing.
Yeah.
And his cost base for his equity is zero.
Yeah, but it's minor. He's already got his exit. So it's not as if
Yes, you're right. So we'll get to... we just highlighted 2 problems in one with this that we'll get to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So currently a high-income earner who receives the 50% CGT discount is effectively taxed at 23.5% on capital. Under the mood of change, the CGT discount will be scrapped and indexed to inflation. We'll talk about that in a second. Of course, this move will absolutely devastate founders and startup employees because they have no cost base attached to the shares. It's different if I buy BHP shares. Now I've got a cost base. If I buy a house, I've got a cost base. Founders don't have a cost base. So I expect they just didn't think about it because they're so stupid. But of course, the beneficiaries of Dim Jim's policies are, of course, wealthy boomers who have owned assets for decades and will be able to claim the full 50% discount based on historical inflation. So they claim that we're going to sort intergenerational inequality, actually making it worse because they are literally that stupid. Etchery founder Craig Blair noted that it's no good having more capital if you don't have the talented founders starting these companies in the first place. To make it less attractive and join a business at a time when there's already a structural pullback to the Silicon Valley is calamitous. Of course, friend of the pod, Steve Baxter, said the CGT changes would cause founders to flee to lower tax jurisdictions. At the same time, the government's talking about increasing the R&D deduction above a $150 million threshold, which I guess will benefit billionaires like Atlassian and Canva. So these guys, they're literally fumbling through life without a clue. So let's go back and talk about CGT and how this discount works.
I just want to give a one-word summary of these people that, like Jim Chalmers and the government, idiots.
I would have said a much harsher.
It's pretty weird that I speak like that, right? But like, it's not, because there are things that they're changing that will negatively affect me and you, but that we think are right for society.
Yeah. Tax housing is like I'll get smashed with housing tax, but I don't care.
So this, or some trust changes they're making, which probably are not very fair.
Yeah.
I don't like the changes because like it will make me a bit poorer.
Yeah.
But I think they're fair.
Yeah.
They're fair changes. And so the reason I wanted to say that at the front end is I don't want people to feel like we're just going on a rant because we personally are going to suffer
two rich guys going on a
downside.
rant, which is nothing further from the truth. We're in favour of being taxed in certain ways, but not in moronic ways.
So if I'm thinking about a tax system, this is how I think about it, just a few headline points. So we need to, as a country, we need to make sure that we find a way of encouraging people to get the money they have, we'll call it capital, and put it into assets that are productive. Create jobs, ideally create exports. That's where we want capital to go. And where we don't want capital to go is in passive assets that just tie up money. And they may make money for the owner, but they don't benefit the country when the owner makes that money. That's not good. So that's objective number one. Maybe a second objective you could say would be we want to encourage people to start businesses that employ people and create exports or at least some kind of productive output.
Improve productivity.
That's important. And then the third thing we want is we want younger people to have an opportunity to, one, own housing, but two, in general, more broadly, have wealth creation opportunities that older people had. That's very important. They call this, what do they call this? Intergenerational equity or something like that. They don't really understand what that word means, but they're right with that term. We do want intergenerational equity means young people get the same opportunity for wealth creation that older people have had. So that is important. And the last thing we want is not to spend more money than we're actually generating and endlessly increase the debt that we have. Because ultimately the interest on that debt is going to mean that the services that Australians get...
Victoria before.
We're going to get worse services because we have to use the money to pay
So
debt.
we'll talk about taxes, but we need to talk about spending as well because the two are inextricably linked.
And so one of the challenges, and so this is the only other overarching thing I want to say. So there's a hierarchy of risk amongst, I'm going to just give an example of 3 investments. And so there's a pretty basic concept in market economics, which is the return needs to match the risk. Higher risk, higher return. And one way that you can determine returns is with the tax system. That determines outcomes. So the lowest risk thing that you can buy in Australia, notwithstanding the risk of collapse, but the lowest risk thing where you're unlikely to lose all your money and you get to use the asset while you've got it is your own house. That's a very low risk thing to own. And so that's the lowest risk. The next lowest risk...
It gives you a terrible return, but it has the best tax treatment because there's zero tax on it.
Well, what we can say is on a risk basis, the chances of you losing 100% of your equity in your house is very low compared to some other assets.
More that like you're getting if you look at the imputed yield.
Before we
shocking.
get to the tax treatment, just as an asset.
Forget tax, but like I can rent a house much more cheaper than I can buy a house.
Yes, that's right. But I get
a super tax effective, no tax on the upside.
And the thing about a residential house is eventually it will get cheap enough that someone has to buy it from you because people need somewhere to live. Like I can have a warehouse.
No, but you can wipe out your equity if you've leveraged.
You can if you leverage too hard, but it's a low risk asset compared to the other end of the spectrum.
It's a low risk, low return asset.
Yeah, which is let's say a company.
Yeah.
So a company, you can lose 100% of your equity. The company can go broke, especially an early stage company that you're just starting.
Yeah.
That's the riskiest asset class that you can invest in. And somewhere in the middle might be investment property. And so what you'd want is you'd want a tax structure if you were trying to align risk and return where starting your own company gave you the most favorable tax treatment all the way up to your own house. You don't need great tax treatment for your own house because it's a pretty low risk asset.
Yeah.
This country exactly flips the risk treatment of the taxation system to make the most attractive asset your own house, the second most attractive asset an investment property, and the least attractive asset starting your own business.
Or investing in somebody's own business.
Or investing in someone else's business. But actually investing in someone else's business is still now going to be better tax treatment than starting the business itself.
Well, it depends when you invest, but yes.
And so that is what I mean, or what we mean when we say you want to encourage people to put their money in the right places. Totally. And this is the absolute final thing I want to say before we talk about the changes. So negative gearing is a very weird thing.
So if we flip from CGT to negative gearing,
so I'm going to talk about we talked about CGT, but now I want to talk about negative gearing because the two are very tightly
So before we go to negative gearing, because I want to talk about negative gearing as well. But so the way capital gains tax works in Australia, at the moment, it's potentially about to change tonight.
Well, you should say, what does capital gains tax mean?
Yeah. So basically, when you or I get paid for our jobs, our regular jobs, we get paid income, and you pay income tax, and that's a scale, and it basically there's tax brackets, and you pay at above a certain level 47%.
And it's called a progressive tax system because the more you earn, it gets progressively higher tax rates. So not only do you pay more tax for earning more, but you pay a higher percentage of your income.
Above a certain level, which I'm not sure what the highest tax bracket is now, call it 300K or whatever it is. And above that, you're paying that higher level.
Yeah, I think it might be 360.
Yeah, so what happens with income is pretty straightforward. What the government and what governments around the world say with capital is we're not going to tax capital like we tax income.
You say income is straightforward, but the only other bit you should add with income is it's not that you get taxed on 100% of the income you bring in. You can make certain deductions. So if you make $200,000, but there are various things that you can legally claim as deductions, maybe that's $20,000 worth of stuff, then you'll get taxed as if you earned $280,000, not $300,000. That's going to be relevant in the negative gearing discussion.
The way capital gains tax works around the world is governments simply say, you've probably been taxed initially. So when you've earned income, you've saved that money, you then invested it, you're basically getting taxed a second time. So government said, we want to encourage people to invest in, rather than put the money under the bed or invest in really low risk stuff or simply buy a house, we want people to invest in other people's businesses.
Productive assets.
Yeah, productive assets. So we're going to give a discount on productive asset investments. And if you look, I looked at basically OECD countries, and the highest country I could find on capital gains tax, what do you reckon the highest taxing capital gains tax country was?
What country was it?
Yeah.
In the OECD? I'm not sure, but I doubt it's more than 30%.
Well, it was Denmark because they're basically socialist. They were at 42.
They're at 42 on...
But this is Denmark. So this is like, these are the basically communist countries in Scandinavia. And you got Chile at 40, Norway, another communist country at 37.8, Netherlands at 36. These are all Finland at 34. Then you got France, which is basically socialist. They're now at 34. Ireland 33, Sweden, which is socialist, down at 30, UK's at 28, Austria's at 27.5, Australia's 23, US is at 23.8, basically the same as Australia. And then there are heaps of countries at 15%, like Hungary, Poland, Greece, Colombia. Then you've got a bunch of countries at zero, like Dubai and Singapore.
Well, there are two countries at zero that are very close to Australia.
New Zealand?
One
zero.
is New Zealand, which is basically culturally the same as Australia. And their income tax is a bit lower than Australia, but not much. We should say in New Zealand, the Labor government has said they're going to add a capital gains tax. And Singapore, that has a maximum tax rate of 22% on a hell of a lot of income and has zero capital gains tax and is very encouraging for founders to move there to set up their businesses.
Totally.
So it's not like we're in a part of the world where you'd have to sacrifice everything to stop being a tax resident. There are two very good countries nearby that have zero capital gains tax.
Yeah. And so it's Australia, if this mooted change goes through, will have the highest capital gains tax in the world. Like not even like the Scandinavian countries' tax is high. Like Sweden's at 30%. This is just like the most outrageous suggestion I think I've ever seen in my life, and just shows how out of touch this appalling government has become.
So we should talk about how are things taxed now and how will they change. And so you've talked about how they're taxed now. I like to use numerical examples. So if you go, I'm going to use an example of an investor and then a founder. So an investor invests $500,000 in something and they sell it 5 years later for $1 million. Let's assume that there were no other expenses. They've made a $500,000 gain. So you have to do something with that $500,000. Now, if you said you should just add that to their income, the problem with that is as follows. The first problem is what you've already said. They've already been taxed on the money they've invested. But the second problem is this. That income, that gain was really earned over 5 years. If there's someone that's earning $200,000 a year, they're not paying the top tax bracket. If they divided the gain over 5 years, it would be $100K a year, unindexed. That still wouldn't put them into the top tax bracket. But if you dump it all into 1 year, it goes straight up to the top tax bracket. Point. So that's the first problem.
I've never even thought about that.
With dumping it all in 1 year. The other thing...
So at the very least, they should be averaging it over the...
Absolutely. And then what they say is, but we're going to have to make you pay capital gains tax on this, because I'm a fan of capital gains tax. I think if you want to have funds, I'm not a fan of government spending at these levels, but I do think if you want to have free hospitals and free education and other things, you do have to pay for it, and you can't only pay for it out of income and corporate tax. Actually, corporate tax should probably come down.
I'm not a fan of capital gain. I much prefer like a property or a wealth tax and a capital gains tax.
It could be. And so they're trying to use a capital gains tax as a proxy for a wealth tax, okay?
Exactly.
Because it's only came in 1987. Pre-19, if you're Solly Lou and you own Premier Investments, when you sell that, you're going to pay zero capital gains tax.
Zero.
So it's all grandfathered, they call it. And so... and we'll come back to that, because grandfathering is how the young are really going to get screwed in this budget.
We'll get to that. We'll get to negative gear in a second.
And so the thing is that they say, well, we're going to get you to pay tax on this, and we're going to make it part of your income. But it's not really fair if we just dump it in there. So we'll say that $500K, if you've held it for more than a year, which you have, we're going to cut that in half. So you're only going to have to say that you made a $250,000 gain, and you're going to put that into your income. That's the way the system works. When people say it's a 50% discount, that's what they mean. You only have to get half the gain and put it on your income.
This is still higher than a lot of countries. Like I'm in favour of maybe a sub 10%.
Well, how high it is. The beauty of this system is as follows. The size of the discount kind of follows the amount of tax that you're paying. And so, like, you could argue, well, it's not progressive, because if you're on a lower tax rate, then you're going to be paying less. It's less of a benefit, right? Because you're saving less tax. But the thing is, the people on a higher tax rate, they paid more tax going into it in the first place. It's kind of fair, right? And so if we look at the founder, though, this is the beauty of this system. A founder gets their shares for zero. They just started the business. And now they sell them for $1 million. Well, hang on. They've made a $1 million gain, so they're going to have to pay more tax than the person that invested at $500,000. That's fair, but they get the same game. It's like you get the $1 million, you divide it in two. Okay, you made a $500,000 gain you need to put on your tax, and now we put that on your tax. It works whether you're the founder or the investor. It works the same way.
It does, but I think it's still a bit harsh on founders in a sense that, to your point on the not averaging, is more impactful for founders. So I actually think this is the existing system is harsh on founders.
It is, but what you can say is at least the system,
it's better than what's being proposed.
Founders a very big discount relative to if it was just income. I'm agreeing with you. It's not. But as you say, it should have gotten better, not worse.
But the founders could have been getting 30% income and paying himself $200,000 a year.
Right.
So like, the current system is, I'd say, semi-bad for founders, and the mooted system is a catastrophe for founders.
So that's what happens today.
As
of now, and so you can do that for any asset class. And the beauty of this system is as follows: if an investor put $500,000 in, and then the company was running out of money, and they put another $250,000 in. Now their cost base is $750,000. When they sell it for $1 million, the gain is $250. You divide it in half. Now they claim $125. Like, the system works really well. It works for shares. It works for property. Like, it actually, there's some inelegance in the system, but not much. Like, it's a pretty good system.
I don't love it for I gotta say, like, if they simply got rid of it for property, I wouldn't have an issue. It's the getting rid of it because property, as to your point, it's a non-productive asset. So that's where I have it. But and that was what they promoted originally, is only property.
So before we go and talk about what they're doing to founders with CGT and young people, I just want to touch on property for a second by saying this: the number one challenge with property is that the house that you own and live in, you will never pay any capital gains tax when you sell that house. That means the now 90-year-old grandmother who just passed away, she bought her house for $25,000. It just sold for $5 million as an estate sale. There's no tax on that. And her two kids get $2.5 million each, presumably, from that, tax-free. There is no cap. There is no limit. So number one, that's
ridiculous. Which we've talked about repeatedly.
But it's very unpopular vote-wise to bring in a tax on a primary residence. The next issue,
and I think, like, if you are going to tax, I would probably do something like call it a sub 20% tax rate and indexed. So it's still it's a much more gentle form of how you, and admittedly this would always, I think taxes always go up, not down, but I think you've got to tax the primary residence somehow, but you've got to be, obviously it's hard because then you're going to completely crater the property market
you can
really
have
quickly.
A ceiling, or there's 100 ways to solve. I generally prefer simplicity to complexity, but your point is there's 100 ways to solve that problem if you wanted to solve it. Remember,
but they love old rich people, these governments. They pretend they don't, but they do. They love them.
Well, I think these,
and they all own properties. Like Jim Chalmers owns a property, investment property.
Well, we'll get to that. But part of this, I think, is class warfare. But part of it, I think, is just straight incompetence and stupidity. That's my honest view.
I think it's both.
Of what's going on.
They intermingle beautifully with this government.
Remember I said, if you had a business and then you were losing money on that business and you had to put more money in that business, or the business just lost money that year. Let's say a business just loses $100,000. You own a private business. You're not a sole trader, because a sole trader is different, but you own your own business and you lose $100,000. What happens to that $100,000 loss? Maybe you paid yourself an income of $300,000 and you lost $100,000. Well, that $100,000 stays in the business and it can be offset against future profits. That is what happens to that. Actually, one of the things the government's doing is letting you say if you made profits in previous years, you can get a tax refund on some of the tax you paid if you're a small business. I like that. That's a good thing. So that's how it works if you lose money in a business. But if you buy an investment property and you lose money, well, that is a whole different world. If you buy an investment property for $2 million and you charge, I don't know, like $50,000 of rent, but the property with the interest and the maintenance cost you $100,000. You just lost $50,000. Good news. We are going to let you make that $50,000. One of those expenses you can just take off your income on your income tax. Now, and that is the most that's called negative gearing. And that is the most regressive piece of taxation you can have, because the richer you are, and the higher the tax rate you pay, the more you save. And that encourages people to buy investment properties and charge low rent. They can charge low rent because when they lose money on the investment property by not charging enough rent, they can claim it back as a tax
slightly
benefit.
Wrong. They don't charge, landlords will always charge the most rent they can. What happens? They overpay for the properties and cause the interest bill to go up higher.
But now that they've overpaid, the negative gearing lets them continue charging rent that doesn't cover the property.
But where you sort of got misspoke a bit, and everybody does, is landlords don't undercharge rent. Landlords and property managers are rational. They always charge the most rent they can. But what happens is the interest just is above that. They're not.
No, I agree with you, but that is the system that you've just outlined is correct. They can overpay. But if you suddenly changed the system, for example, because this is one of the things we're going to get to, is that they're not changing negative gearing on existing properties. If you suddenly change the system, all of a sudden they can't claim these losses. Either rent needs to go up or they need to sell the property, right?
Yeah.
And so the change they're making...
Well, they sit on the loss and don't claim it. But
but most people can't afford to do that, right?
And they've also lost the discount. So the reason people did this negative, the reason why people overpay for investment properties is two reasons. They work together, and Labor's
that's why I say
tackling them.
They're integrated problems.
Yeah. So basically, what property investors done for the last 27 years is overpay for properties and lose money because the interest doesn't cover the rent, knowing that they can deduct against their get 47% discount on the loss. So instead of losing 50 grand a year, you're losing 25 grand a year.
So if you're on the top tax bracket, the government subsidises 50% of your losses without taking any equity in your property.
Yeah. And when you sell it, you get the discount. So basically people are sort of overpaying initially, knowing that somebody will overpay when they sell it because of the discount. So what the government's done is obviously removing the 50 cents CDC discount, which we don't have a huge issue with there. They're also removing negative gearing unless it's an existing property or you already own the property. So if I was to buy an investment property in 6 months' time, I wouldn't be able to negatively gear it.
Unless it's a new build.
Unless it's a new build. Forget new builds.
So they've kept it on new builds. And so let's just say this in the simplest possible terms. So Mike does not own an investment property, I'm guessing, because you're not of the age that generally owns investment properties. And so Mike is younger, let's call
Joel,
him.
do you own an investment property?
And Joel doesn't. Joel's younger. Joel might not even own his own house, right?
Joel's in his early 20s.
Yeah, Joel's in his early 20s.
Yeah.
So you are meant to be the beneficiaries of generational equity. Well, I've got bad news for you. This government has just permanently screwed you.
Yeah.
Because all of the...
And the Greens helping, by the way. Greens are vociferously going on with this. So if you're voting Greens or Labor, you're signing your own death warrant.
Yes, you're shafting yourself as a young person. So this is why I say this. All these politicians in Parliament, they're older. And they own investment properties.
In a case like 3, 4, 5, 6 investment properties.
Because I think something like 2.2 million Australians own an investment property. Mostly they own one. It's a bit more than one on average, okay? And so I think 20% of the total residential property stock is investor owned. And so all of these politicians sitting in Parliament with these existing properties, they get to keep their negative gearing because it's been grandfathered. That means you as the poor taxpayer, you are going to continue subsidising 50% of the losses that they make from owning their properties. But if you now try to buy an investment property, guess what? You can't get the benefit of the government subsidising any percentage of your expenses because negative gearing is going to be scrapped for people that are buying rental properties after the budget.
I will just say it's interesting because on last week's Q&A episode, I believe there was a question around sort of this world about how younger people are falling behind. And do you think this contributes more to that?
This will put you further behind because this is the situation. People that are boomers, they got the benefit of no CGT and low housing prices. We came along, Gen X, you think you're Gen Y, but let's say our kind of age,
Centennial.
and we got the benefit of negative gearing and a 50%.
Well, I've never actually negatively geared a house, so it's because of my youth.
This generation got the benefit,
well,
right?
your generation did. And me and Mike's generation haven't had that.
Not Joel's,
your
though.
poor
Like Joel, Gen Alpha over there.
your poor choices and Mike's generation. And so, but they got the benefit of negative gearing, government paying half effectively for higher income earners, half of the losses, and a 50% discount on capital gains tax. And so boomers and Gen X, they've had this chance to compound their wealth by using the tax system effectively. There is no faster way to make money than not having to pay tax on the profits that you've made and being able to compound those. Now you come along and guess what? We've got a special surprise for you. Because you're poorer and you haven't yet had a chance to compound wealth, because you haven't been alive long enough, we've got a special surprise for you as the government. We're going to take away all the compounding benefits from you. We're going to take away negative gearing, which we don't oppose, but that's a compounding benefit.
Take it away completely.
We're
Don't
going
leave
to
it
take it away from you, but not from older people that already own properties.
Not from us who own 6 properties. We're going to keep it for ourselves. But you young people, you idiot Greens voters who have voted for this are going to get absolutely shafted. Well done, Greens voters. You've shafted yourself.
And when boomers go and sell their business, they get to keep 100% of the profits they make from selling their business. But you're not even going to be allowed to discount it by 50%.
That's a great point. Why on earth won't they get rid of this pre-CGT? They can get rid of that as well if they wanted to.
Well, they're not. And so you are going to get the worst tax treatment. And I'll tell you the worst tax treatment of all for you. This is the great thing for you, Mike, running your own business. You're going to love this, okay? Basically, they're going to say, we're going to index. So what does indexing mean? It means you take what the inflation rate is and you just keep so you start at 1.0, and if the inflation rate is 3%, now it becomes 1.03, and if the inflation rate's 10% next year, it'll be bad, but like heading in that direction, then you multiply 1.03 by 1.1 and that puts another 10% on. And so you end up trying to say, what's the real value of the money when you finally sell? But think about this. So that person that bought their investment for $500,000, there's now going to be an indexation factor. They multiply that $500,000 and they say, well, the value of that $500,000 today is really $700,000. So our cost base increases to $700,000. We sold for $1 million. Okay, instead of saying we made $500,000 profit and dividing it in two, which is the current system, we're going to say the cost base has gone up from $500K to $700K. So we've made $300,000 profit. Now we're going to take the whole $300,000 and put that on our tax. And so it's not that different, but this is the problem, Mike. How much did you pay for the equity in your business?
0.
So I'm now going to multiply that by infinity and as an indexation factor. And what is now the value of the equity that you paid?
What's your cost base?
What's your cost base now? 0 times infinity, it's still 0.
Yeah.
And so whatever you sell your business for in future, instead of getting a 50% discount on the capital gains tax, you will get a big fat 0% discount on the capital gains tax, and you will now have to pay, presuming you sell your business for an amount of money that takes your tax to your total income above $360,000, which is the highest tax bracket. Instead of paying 25% tax on the profit you make from selling your business, you will now pay 50% tax on that. And so what is the chances of you as a young person, being able to compound your wealth to get rich? No chance, because all of the benefits that previous generations have had are all being stripped from you in the name of intergenerational equity.
Even worse, the whole way indexation works is if I put $1 million into BHP, and I'm already wealthy, I'm a boomer who's put $1 million into BHP or whatever, I get to index that. I get the discount. So the older people get the discount. So every single thing they're doing, the so-called friend of the young Greens, who the Greens are spurring this, and idiot Chalmers and Katie Gallagher, who can so dumb she can barely talk. Like, these morons are completely ruining it for young people.
I would say you could not come up with an idea. It would be hard for me to think of a way to make the rich get richer and the poorer be worse off than these changes.
Yeah.
It is so catastrophic. And this is why we talk about the flight of founders overseas. So, Mike, you're now going to start your podcasting business, and I just say to you, and you don't own property in Australia, and so that means that you can leave Australia, and as long as you don't own and live in a property in Australia and don't spend more than 180 days a year here, you won't be a tax resident of Australia. Now, if we try to leave Australia as a tax resident, the government and the ATO does a bit of a nasty thing, and they say, we're just going to value your assets on the day you leave, and we're going to work out how much tax you owe us based on the value of your assets. But you have no value of your assets. You're young. You haven't accumulated assets. And by the way, with this government, you won't be accumulating assets. And
you might be accumulating, you just have to pay it all back to them.
Yeah. And so you say, hang on. So I'm going to start this business and I'm hoping to sell this business. And let's say I'm hoping to sell it for some millions of dollars in a few years' time. And I don't really have to be in Australia more than 180 days a year. Maybe you do, but if I'm doing a software business or another business, I don't. And so I look around and I say, hang on a second. Why should I start this business in Australia? I don't want to be a tax resident in Australia. And I look at New Zealand and I say, New Zealand, that feels a lot like Australia. I'll pay a bit lower income tax. And also, they've currently got no capital gains tax. I'll pay no
Singapore,
tax.
very nice place to live.
What about Singapore? It's 7 hours away. It's closer to overseas markets that I might be targeting anyway.
Brilliantly run,
has a maximum tax rate of 22%. As a founder, you're not going to be paying anywhere near that because that's a high thing. Yeah. And it has 0% capital gains tax. And they'll give me incentives as a young person for starting a business in Singapore. And so when they go and work out the cost of this to the economy, they can't work out the cost of all of the founders that now go overseas to start their business.
That. What actually will happen as well, when you found it, you don't know how well your business is going to go when you found it, but you know within a year or two, you know you've got product market fit.
Yeah, that's right.
So what everybody's going to do, and what the PwCs as well are going to tell you to do, is as soon as you start getting product market fit, they'll get a super valuation on the business, and you flip straight to Singapore or New Zealand. You maybe move there, maybe you don't. There's ways around this. Every great business is going to flee the country as soon as it looks like they're having great, and these
totally
morons are going
agree.
to lose all this revenue.
So let me tell you 3 theses that I have on this about what you should do. And you tell me if you agree or disagree with these theses. Thesis 1, if you're a founder, at least with product market fit, if not starting a business, and you don't need to be in Australia for running this business, you absolutely should not be a tax resident in Australia growing your business. Agree? Go to Singapore.
I think certainly as soon as you hit product market fit, you flee.
Get
you
out
have
of here.
Yeah.
And so that has to happen because if it doesn't happen...
People are rational. Of course it'll happen.
And that has to happen. So we have to have a flight of productive enterprise out of Australia.
Just to be clear, we already have a very high CGT regime. We have one of the worst in the world already. And they're going to double. They're going to have the worst place for founders to start their business or to run their business is Australia. Thank you, Jim Chalmers. You've made Australia the hellhole of world startups.
So you have to say that businesses that are producing jobs, which is predominantly new businesses and growing businesses, you would have, unless there's a reason you have to stay in Australia for family or other things. Yeah. But if you're young and you're unencumbered, you've got to move overseas. Yeah,
founders
right?
are risk-seeking.
Get out of here. Get under this. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, let's talk about the most logical place for protecting generational wealth under this regime. Invest, unless you think the property market is going to crash.
I think the property market is not going to like these changes, by the way.
Well,
it's going to be pretty bad for them.
But the best
I'm not going to see any tears over, but it's not going to be good for property.
Well, the best way, though, over the long term, over 30 years, that you could create a tax-effective generational transfer of wealth is to overcapitalise your primary residence.
Yes, but I think that changes now that investors are about to get smashed.
Well, maybe. So let's talk about what happens to investment property. But let's say if the property market didn't change, let's make that a constant. Yeah. Everyone should go and buy the most expensive house they can possibly afford because there will be no tax on that when you transfer that to whoever you sell it to.
Yeah, I think what the assets that benefit the most from these changes are call existing companies that pay dividends, and so
we'll get to dividends. Absolutely.
So you get obviously you still get the dividend limitation, but you also get the indexation of cost base. So I can invest in Luxuryscapes now, Catapult now, established businesses. People invest in us are going to have a great run. You get the indexing gains. We're paying dividends, so you get the great dividend limitation. So businesses like it, we're going to benefit from these likely personally, but everybody else is pretty much
let's take that as a thesis. Now I've got a few more. I've got 5. So let's take this as the next one. The thing that people are going to be doing is saying, what's an established business paying dividends? Because the treatment of dividends is really good in Australia. And so, I'll set my cost base. I'll still pay more capital gains tax probably than I otherwise would
maybe
have.
Not with inflation rates like these idiots are managing now. I think paying less or the same.
Well, but
I don't know they cap it out at 50%.
To get to a 50% discount though.
Do they cap it at 50 or do they keep going?
Well, who knows? That's a good question.
Yeah.
They haven't
we'll find
said,
out tomorrow. Yeah.
But even if it grows at 4% a year, it's still going to take you 10 plus years.
I know, but if you hold an asset for 25 years, you could pay zero capital gains.
I agree with
potentially.
that. So people are going to flood into existing, maybe low growth businesses, paying high dividend yields that are being taxed in Australia, so they're fully franked. And so there will be a lot of pressure on companies to start paying dividends.
Totally.
I think in Australia, that's going to be a big push. So yes, that's another thesis. I think
investment property is going to get absolutely hammered. So that means all property is going to get hammered.
Let's talk about what happens to investment property. So there's a pool of X number of investment properties today that are being held. It's 2.2 million, okay? That's the number. Now, if you own one of those investment properties, for as long as you own that property, and presumably if you pass it down through probate when you die, that is going to be entitled to negative gearing, correct?
Yeah.
And so you would not sell that property. And so if I sell an investment property and buy another investment property, I lose the negative gearing benefit. Yeah. So I think the 2.2 million people that own those properties, they will be holding on to those properties for dear life.
Yeah, and you don't get the discount anymore for CGT, so why would you...
all of those 2.2 million properties, they were going to come onto the market. They're not coming onto the market. Yeah. And if they come onto the market, then this is the other thing. To park that for a second, you got these 2.2 million tied up. Now, imagine I'm in the market to buy an investment property. I'm looking right today, I'm looking to buy a $3 million investment property and rent it out. As of tomorrow, I would be crazy to buy that investment property.
Yeah.
I'll get no negative gearing and I'll be penalised on CGT. So the whole economics don't work.
Demand
so you can say, well, the price will fall. And I think you're right, but I think this. A whole lot of people that were going to buy investment properties will not buy investment properties. And guess what happens to investment properties? That's the rental stock in the market.
Yeah.
And so I think the rental stock is going to be these 2.2 million that exist today. That rental stock will stay in the market.
Or do they buy new properties?
Well, they can't buy new properties because they get no negative gearing on the new properties.
No, you get negative gearing on new properties.
A new dwelling?
New builds.
Well, then we have a pink bats bubble. Remember pink bats? So you put great tax treatment on something, it instantly gets rorted.
Yeah.
And so
what's going to happen is the price of new properties
that's
goes up.
right, it's going to go up. So just the price of new dwellings is going to rise because the economics will look so much better because of the tax treatment.
Yeah.
And so I think in the short term, there will actually be fewer rental properties available on the market.
100%.
Because investors are not going to buy properties.
You get the full CGT discount if you buy the house yourself. So
that's right. So when it comes to an auction,
so if you can't afford a house, if you're a renter who can't afford a house, see you later, mate. Because you're in
night.
all sorts of
That's good night. So I want to
Greens
say it
again,
like
just
this.
the enemy of the renter.
When there is a house on the market, there's an investor looking at that property and an owner looking at that property. Let's say there's two owners and an investor. One hopeful owner rents today. They can't afford the property.
Yeah.
So they're at the mercy of the rental market. They drop out of the auction. Maybe the investor would have won that auction because of negative gearing, but the investor's price that they can pay now is much lower because no negative gearing. And so that's nice. It goes to a buyer, an owner-occupier. And so I think there will be some benefit for people who are on the margins, almost able to afford a property, but couldn't quite afford a property.
Yeah.
I think they'll be able to buy a property. But I think if you're deep in rental territory, this is a disaster for you. And, there is such a thing in markets called the supply and demand curve. I know this government doesn't like the idea of supply and demand curves, but if there's less supply of rental properties, then the price of rentals will go up to the upper limit that people can stretch to pay. And so I think that this is going to be a disaster for renters.
And can we just talk about the other side? I think I agree. But this whole debacle that we've spent 40 minutes talking about, this is only going to raise like $6 billion a year. So it's not even a significant revenue generator for the government because it's only a small number of businesses that create all these jobs and all this prosperity. And I know I like to bang on about the NDIS. I did a little bit of research on the NDIS.
Of course this is because of the NDIS.
Well, it's because of all the shit they spend money on, the SRL, the NDIS. But look how much NDIS cost about $50 billion. So call it 8 times all this savings. So we're not even saving much from this.
Yeah.
If you look at the NDIS, so we talk about the NDIS, and I did a bit of thinking about the NDIS. So NDIS, where it got the government got the social license to spend all this money, because pre-NDIS, pre-GILAB, it was all a bit of a hodgepodge of state government, there was charities, all this kind of stuff. So they kind of streamlined it, which kind of makes sense because it was a bit all over the place. So what the government basically said is, if you've got a disability, you're really unlucky. And I think we all kind of agree, like someone's quadriplegic or really seriously MS.
And we believe in a safety net
Yep.
as part of the nature of the social fabric of our society.
Yeah. So someone's been really, and if someone's been quadriplegic, and we absolutely think they need to get protected by the government. And you've been really unlucky there. We're going to give you a bit of luck back to make up for all that. So I think that's understandable. I think the issue with the really seriously disabled is how much money they get. It's about $500,000 a year, up to $1 million a year.
Really?
Which is pretty extraordinary.
I'm shocked by that.
Yeah. So I think the average quadriplegic is around the sort of $300,000-$400,000 mark and up to $1 million. So
because presumably it's very expensive to take care of them.
I know, but that's like 6 care. It sounds like
I can't really comment on whether that.
Yeah.
I can say this: it's a lot of money.
Because it's being rorted and frauded. So what happens is you need a wheelchair. I'm going to charge you $80,000 for a wheelchair because the NDIS is paying. So there's a huge amount of rorting.
That's absolutely true, and definitely there is a big push. I've seen this push. Someone said to me, "It's one thing to know this is going on. It's another thing to meet the people that are rorting it."
Yeah.
And so I know some people that know the people that are rorting it, and so the thing is, there is a huge push to say it's use it or lose it money.
It's exactly what happens. You can't carry it. You can't carry it forward.
Yep.
So it was just a tip. So you've got. I think we all agree. If you're quadriplegic, if you've got MS, you need support.
I'm all in favour of taxpayer support.
So that should cost about $5 billion. I think it costs about 10 for the really genuinely disabled. So we're probably wasting about $5 billion there. That's $5 billion bank on, but at least...
So I can't comment because I don't know, but I take your
at
point.
least those people are deserving of something.
Yeah.
Then you've got called the Intellectual Disability Group, which is another group entirely, which is not autism. That's sort of a different level. So it's not quadriplegic, but you need...
Maybe cerebral palsy and things
cerebral
like
palsy,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you definitely need help.
Well, they need money, for
Absolutely.
sure.
And no one's sort of criticising
Yeah.
that, but that's 13.5 billion.
13.5.
13.5 billion a year. So that's... And this is money that wasn't being spent previously, like a fraction of it was. Then you've got, of course, the autism, 10.2 billion.
And we could say this. We could say even if 70% of it's genuine, I'm going to say 70 because we'll get no hate mail and still be able to have this conversation. That's $3 billion a year that's rorted, not overspent.
Oh, you're talking autism or intellectual
autism?
disability? Oh, forget autism's all rorted.
Well, it's not. I totally disagree with that.
Well, but you need to distinguish between intellectual disability and autism.
Disagree.
So go back to my first point: is when someone's been really unlucky, we need to support them. Someone's quadriplegic, we need to support them.
I think
if someone's got autism, which is learning disabilities, speech issues, why is the government funding this? We've got to draw the line, and it's there.
Well, let's say a couple of things here. Okay?
This is $10 billion a year.
All right, but let me tell you a couple of things. So there's maybe multiple arguments that you're conflating here. One argument is, should the government be paying for ASD, autism spectrum disorder? That's argument one. You can debate that independently of whatever you feel about the diagnostic criteria.
The average is $30,000 a year, by the way, for every autistic person.
Okay, which
$30,000 a year.
That's a lot of
That's
money.
Extraordinary.
The next question is, when people are, let's say, far down the autism spectrum, like, would I say they fall into the, I don't like to say unlucky because I kind of feel like it's condescending, but in your bag of unluckiness, they need help. I absolutely would put them in that category. And then the next question is, where does that line end? And how many people really shouldn't need to get any kind of help from the government, even if we think that help is available.
Plus, it's not mean tested. So it means tested. So you
correct.
Can be millionaire
that's
on
why I'm
this.
saying I don't think we need to say. I think it's wrong to cast aspersions on people that are significantly down the autism spectrum.
I'm not casting aspersions on those people. I'm casting aspersions on the government for giving the money. It's not the autism.
So I think those people. So I personally would be in favour of some money going to those people because I think you're underestimating what that looks like. And maybe I said it's very
a couple of $1,000 a year, $5,000. Well, how much should it be?
Yeah,
like
not
30,000. That's some people earn that much working full time.
So that's why I say there's separate issues, right? Like I'm saying this in kind of. I'm not really trying not to attack you or be critical here. What I'm saying is because we've had slightly different life experiences in where we've come from. Like I think I've got more visibility around what autism spectrum disorder looks like from a medical point of view, and I think I'm much more sympathetic to those people being deserving is again the wrong word. I support our society helping families like that. Is it 30K?
Nothing's free. So if we're going to give money to someone who's a kid with autism, we're taking money away from a kid who doesn't have autism.
Yeah, I'm all right.
So you could be earning $300,000 a year, and you get this 30 grand.
So I'm not all right with
and you're earning $60,000. You're paying for it. The whole thing. $0. $0.
Well,
that's why we've got to go back to square one and get rid of it and start again.
That's why I'm saying to you,
quadriplegics definitely support.
Well,
cerebral palsy support.
But
MS support.
Why do you not make the same argument?
It shouldn't be the same thing.
If a quadriplegic is like the kid of a billionaire, you still want to give government
money
money
to
them?
Something.
So I think this is what's interesting about this debate is like it's not going to sound great, but like there's hypocrisy on every angle of this debate, and you've got to draw lines somewhere, right? And what I'm saying is, I think if you had to say where what are the problems with NDIS? Because all of our problems in Australia, dollar-wise, like a large proportion of them are being caused by the NDIS. That's absolutely correct what
and
you're saying.
And you guys like AUKUS, which is ridiculous. But yeah.
And so part of it is stretch diagnoses, predominantly in the ASD space, and part of it is straight rorting, where people don't even bother going to the doctor.
Yeah.
They just get a pretend piece of paper and go and get NDIS money. And I think your overarching point is the strongest of all points, which is all of this pain and suffering we've spent 40 minutes talking about is how much a year extra?
6 billion.
6 billion. I think it might be, so these are my last two quick theses. It might be more in year one because I think what's going to happen is recycling of assets. So if you've made a big gain on a stock today, you should sell that stock and buy it back at a higher cost base and get the 50% discount. And so the ATO will get a flood of capital gains taxes in the next 12 months because people are just going to recycle assets on the same day, right?
Yeah.
And then my other point that I would make
is risky because there's a high chance I think Libs come in and win, One Nation Libs come in and they reverse it.
Yeah, well, maybe, but like when you say there's a high chance, I mean, there was a predictable election result on the weekend in
Farah.
What's it called? In
Queensland.
Albury
Albury, yeah.
And like, it was predictable, but it's bad news for the Libs, right? And
we say that because Labor didn't run. Like, Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer, got on TV and was gloating like a Cheshire cat how good it is for Labor. Labor was too gutless to even run a candidate. So I think they would have been smashed just as bad.
All right, but it's not. But what we have to figure out what the right in this country is going to look like. I think they're still figuring it out, right?
Transferring it.
But I think there will be a lot of recycling of assets. And this is my last point. If you're a founder today and your business is worth a decent chunk of money, then you should find someone to buy a big secondary round off you and sell a chunk of your shares to someone and lock in that capital gain, because if this is not reversed in the next 5 years, and if you're planning an exit in the next 5 years, your tax rate just doubled.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a vertically integrated retail business, come talk to me. Because now is the time to sell down ahead of these changes. There's a 1 year window, right?
Yeah,
There's a 1 year window.
1 year window.
And so I think we're going to see a huge amount of selling activity by founders in the next 1 year.
For discounted prices. So you said a cop.
Of course, because it's supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember that thing? There's all this new supply that's going to come into the market.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a good time for investors to buy assets.
When I'm talking about how the whole autism thing, I'm not criticising people with autism or
I know
autism.
that.
And everyone comment, the people who always have a go at me are people who are getting money from the government. So what's happened is these poor people who've had, I'm not saying if you've got a kid with autism you've been lucky. I'm saying it's a sad state of affairs or a tough state of affairs.
It's harder than someone that doesn't have
We've
it.
trained all these people, the government has trained all these people that any kind of thing that gets slightly wrong, government, taxpayers will give you money.
Yes.
And that is just ridiculous. This is a welfare state. This is a socialist communist state that we've trained Australians to be in. These are people who 10 years ago weren't getting money and we're going fine. So we've got to rethink how we consider entitlements and at the very least means test the hell out of it. So if you're earning more than 100 grand, you don't get any. If you're earning 50 grand and you've got a son or daughter with severe learning disabilities or autism or what you want to call it, I've got much more sympathy for that. But certainly if you're earning 200, 300, 400K a year, doesn't mean you should be getting paid money from people who have nothing like that. It's just so unfair, this system that Labor and Liberal as well, to their discredit, has supported for 10 years.
So there has been, this culture has emerged in Western democracies, which you can only call a culture of entitlement.
Absolutely.
I just want to read you something as a last bit on this, because this was was either the Australian or the Financial Review, where they were talking to Gen Z people, and they said, there were 4 of them that they quoted, what's the thing that you most want from this budget? Okay, and I'll tell you what these 4 things were. Tabish said a more permanent reduction in university fees or more funding for universities generally. So what he is saying, or he or she, is or they, is basically the future wealthy, i.e. people that go to university, we should give them a subsidy. Yeah. So that's what they're saying.
Presumably he's about to go to university or
goes to university. At university. Hussein, dental into Medicare like we already have for children. Expanding that to lower income could substantially improve healthcare. It's not a bad argument, but it's more entitlement.
Yep.
Someone's got to pay for it. Give me money.
Yeah.
Will McCarthy, brave enough to use his surname in the article, increase funding to mental health services given the difficulty and expense associated with accessing psychologist appointments. More good points, but give us more money.
Yeah.
And Muthaya, expansion of youth allowance because of the meaningful impact it has on so many people's day-to-day lives, i.e. give me more money. So when they asked Gen Z, do you think there needs to be cuts in spending? It was pretty close to 50-50. So this is a generation, okay, they're young, right, and they haven't paid a lot of tax, but I feel like that generation is not attuned to the fact that we got to cut spending.
They've never lived through a recession. They've never seen what it can be like.
There's no way for this country to survive without spending cuts because I think what's happened is you've got a government that is effectively pandering to this sense of entitlement that has occurred in Western democracies over the last 30 years and at the same time really hates wealthy people. Yeah. Really hates wealthy people.
Ultimately is helping them with the ridiculous change they made.
But is also incompetent. Yeah. So you've got these kind of 2 threads with a heavy dose of incompetence. Yeah. And so they're trying really hard to punch older wealthy people, but in fact have just beaten the hell out of young poor people.
Yeah, it's like they've tried to punch someone.
So preposterous.
It's like Jim Chalmers has tried to punch this rich guy. The rich guy's ducked and has punched the poor 21-year-old behind him.
That is a perfect analogy. That is absolutely what's happened. And I think I would just encourage, like if you, as I just want to end with what we started with, if you want to take benefits away from me that I think are unfair societally, then I don't like that. And I think I pay a lot of tax.
Yeah.
But I can't really argue against it because it's fair. But these changes, no young person should be voting for these changes because they are voting against their own self-interest.
Yeah.
They will not have the opportunity to accumulate wealth over the next 30 years that previous generations did.
Well, so on that note, we've got the budget tonight. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll obviously be back next week with our Ask Us Anything, and obviously we'll go through what's happened. And this has been some pretty distressing leaks we've seen from the federal government, and hopefully we've been wrong on some of the stuff, but it doesn't look great at this stage.
If this is what happens, we can say, I'm going to do an Adam Schwab. This is without doubt the worst budget, and there have been some bad budgets, the worst budget of the 21st century.
I'll probably go further. Probably the worst budget since Whitlam.
Yeah,
You're going back that far, which was basically what was ruling the country. So on that note, thank you, Mike and Joel, for sitting through this. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. As always, we'll see everybody on Saturday for our Ask Us Anything episode.